Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Rumors are swirling that there is footage out there that NASA and the US government desperately don't want you to see. Footage that could potentially rewrite our understanding of basically everything. In this video, we are diving deep into the shadows, exploring alleged leaked footage that has sparked debate, fueled conspiracy theories, and raised some seriously unsettling questions. Let's try to figure out what's real and what's not. Something is moving on the moon. I don't know if you're ready for this. It is a moon-walking alien mystery. Have you heard of Google Moon? It's a feature in Google Earth where you can explore the moon's surface, view Apollo landing sites, and more. Well, an eagle-eyed user spotted a shadowy, human-like figure using Google Moon, and it's caused a lot of chaos. Strange shape looks almost like a human with a shadow. It looks like whatever it is staring off into the distance, probably speculating on the meaning of life. It was first uploaded in a YouTube clip by user Wow4Real. The video quickly racked up over 500,000 views. Nothing gets the internet buzzing like a blurry, unexplained object in space. I don't know anything about them, of course, but the Mirror picked it up and then word spread from there. Wow4Real speculated that the shape could be a shadow from a massive standing object or a figure, which doesn't really narrow it down. Others said the shape looked sort of like a vulture, but are space vultures a thing? Others said it looked like a man walking across the surface, just going for a leisurely stroll on the moon. No big deal. What do you think it could be? Just for fun. People have always imagined there being all kinds of creatures living on the moon. Starting in the 17th century, it was a very popular topic. When Galileo published his observations of the moon, everyone thought the moon might have people just like us. It was like another Earth with plants, animals, and here's a twist, a utopian civilization of tall Christian people. A British guy named Francis Godwin in 1638 said that, just for context. Fast forward to 1835, the New York Sun published 6 articles describing the discovery of various species of creatures living on the moon. Richard Locke, a reporter working for the New York Sun, pretended to be a Dr. Andrew Grant. He wrote stories about what astronomer John Herschel had supposedly seen with his telescope. He found bison, goats, unicorns, and tailless beavers in forests on the moon. The most shocking find, however, was the discovery of human bat creatures who had built temples on the moon. Clearly, the moon has sparked our imagination, maybe even since the dawn of humanity. As fun as it is to imagine a lunar Bigfoot meandering about, the most likely explanation is that this is an optical illusion. Shadows on the moon can play tricks on the eye, and oddly shaped rocks can easily resemble something more extraterrestrial. But if you think that explanation is boring, there is a more sci-fi theory going around since you like a good story. Rumor is that NASA knows about these lurking moon creatures and won't tell us about them. Apparently, we would freak out, and the government is trying to cover it up. If you're not convinced one way or the other, you can hop onto Google Moon and do some investigating of your own. Who knows? Maybe you'll be the next person to find an alien, or at the very least, a weirdly shaped rock that gets 500,000 views on YouTube. Be sure to tag me. Happy hunting, everyone. Why do so many people think the moon landing was fake? It's been over 50 years since Neil Armstrong took one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. But did he really? Or was the whole thing fake? Some people still think Neil Armstrong was stepping onto a soundstage in the Nevada desert, not the actual moon. And in December of 2021, a video appeared online that claimed to be leaked footage from WikiLeaks proving the 1969 moon landing was staged. The video, hosted on some of the internet's finest conspiracy hubs from BitChute to Rumble, looks super convincing. But is it legit? Absolutely not. NASA astronauts weren't prancing around a Hollywood set in spacesuits, dodging boom mics and grip cables. The majority of the so-called evidence in this video is in reality behind-the-scenes footage from the 1978 movie Capricorn 1. Have you seen it? It's a film about this exact situation. Faking a space mission. But footage from the movie is being shared as leaked footage from NASA. That's like using Shrek as proof that talking donkeys exist. For example, one of the opening clips of this viral video, where a guy peers into a camera, can be found at the 2-minute mark in Capricorn 1's behind-the-scenes footage. You can see it for yourself on YouTube. Now, WikiLeaks does have a long history of legitimate leaks. They've dropped everything from government secrets to highly classified documents, but they've never released anything suggesting the moon landing was faked. I checked their website, social media feeds, and the deepest corners of the internet. I mean, as deep as I dared to go, I don't want a virus. And I didn't find anything. The only thing close to a leaked moon landing video is this Frankenstein edit of Capricorn 1 clips mixed with random training footage. But it's not real. This isn't the smoking gun conspiracy theorists have been waiting for. Moon landing conspiracy theories have been around since the moon landing itself. Even in 1969, some people thought that landing on the moon was way too abstract to be real. In fact, just 2 years later, the James Bond flick Diamonds Are Forever had a scene making fun of the idea. But the theory really took off after Capricorn 1 hit theaters in 1978. And then there was Bill Kaysing, a former NASA contractor who self-published a pamphlet in 1976 called "We Never Went to the Moon." This bizarre pamphlet from a real NASA contractor set the foundation for all future moon landing hoax arguments. NASA said it took 400,000 employees and contractors to put Neil and Buzz on the moon, but it only took one guy to spread the news that it was all a hoax, and people still believe him. Kaysing was an employee of Rocketdyne from 1956 to 1963. The company helped him design the Saturn V rocket engines that propelled the astronauts to the moon. But in Kaysing's pamphlet, he said it was all lies. For one thing, there are no stars visible in the pictures of the astronauts on the moon, which seems fishy. Furthermore, there is no blast crater under the landing module. And the third reason the landing was fake is that the shadows fall wrong, as if the astronauts are on a movie set. Up until Kaysing's death in 2005, he maintained the whole thing was fake. Until his dying breath, Kaysing repeated that the moon landing was filmed in a TV studio by NASA. If he was lying, you would think he would at least give it up on his deathbed, but he stuck to his story to the bitter end. Did you know that when the Soviets launched Sputnik in October 1957, NASA didn't even exist? The US had no interest in space until the Soviets did. NASA was born in 1958, and they already had Alan Shepard in space by May of 1961. Some say that was too fast and too convenient not to be fake. Did any of you see the movie Fly Me to the Moon with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum? What did you think about it? And now for a quick break. But first, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Sky Diona and Don Dixon for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and spending time with me today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to join the Origins Explained family. The 1973 mission to Mars. Since NASA's moon landing was such a huge success, would it be such a stretch to say they also secretly landed men on Mars 4 years later? Leaked NASA video footage allegedly shows proof of a 1973 manned mission to Mars. This footage is classic conspiracy gold. You've got a shaky camera, grainy visuals, and the pièce de résistance, a sign at the beginning that says, "Not for public distribution." As we all know, every real top-secret government film starts with a label screaming, "Hey, classified stuff in here." The idea behind this alleged covert mission, dubbed Project Red Sun, is that humans landed on Mars in the early 70s, but the government kept it hush-hush. Why? So that the public wouldn't know just how advanced the US's space program truly is. And of course, because aliens. It's always aliens. On the flip side, some hardcore believers argue that the ongoing Curiosity rover mission is a giant hoax because its solar panels look too clean. Their logic is that if Mars is so dusty, someone must be up there polishing the panels, otherwise they would be caked in dirt by now, especially considering the dust storms. Nigel Watson, author of the Haynes UFO Investigations Manual, pointed out that these secret space mission stories keep popping up, and they always seem to have convincing leaked footage. This one, he said, reminds him of the infamous Project Serpo, an alleged alien exchange program that saw humans swap places with ET. Dang, too bad they didn't let people volunteer for that one. Who's up for an alien exchange program? According to the Project Serpo theory, 6 aliens were recovered from the Roswell crash site in 1947. One of whom, let's call him EB1, helped organize a trip for 12 humans to visit his home planet, Serpo, in the Zeta Reticuli system. The mission supposedly happened in 1965, lasted until 1978, and ended with 2 crew members staying behind, 2 dying, and the rest coming back to Earth with a severe case of Martian radiation poisoning. Sadly, there is no real evidence of Project Serpo, nor is there any real evidence of Project Red Sun. Did humans go to Mars in 1973, and is this the real footage of the mission? I can't be the judge, so you be the judge for me, and sound off in the comments. Mysterious sphere caught by the US Navy. Either the US Navy just recorded a flying saucer or a really sneaky beach ball. It's time for another episode of What the Heck Was That? This time featuring a UFO that pulled an Olympic-level dive into the ocean, all caught on camera. And no, this is not a deleted scene from Independence Day. The video, allegedly filmed inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Omaha on July 15, 2019, shows a dark, spherical object. The object is zipping around like it's playing a solo game of Pong before dramatically plunging into the ocean. The clip, released online by filmmaker and ufologist Jeremy Corbell, features the classic elements of any good alien mystery, including some very confused Navy personnel saying things like, "Took off, booking it." Then as the sphere disappears beneath the waves, someone shouts, "Whoa, it splashed!" Come on, isn't that exactly what you would say if you saw a UFO belly flop into the Pacific? According to Corbell, the object was about 6 feet in diameter and reached speeds of between 46 and 158 miles per hour. That's fast, but not warp speed fast. It flew around for over an hour before deciding to go for a swim. The Navy sent a submarine to check things out, but guess what? They found nothing. No wreckage, no alien snorkels, no high-tech beach towels. Corbell is convinced this was the real deal. He said, "We do not know what, if anything, the Navy or Pentagon might be willing to say about the USS Omaha incident, but we are confident the incident is a legitimate mystery." Pentagon spokesperson Susan Goff confirmed that yes, the Navy did capture the footage, but that's about all she was willing to admit. She also mentioned that the clip is part of an ongoing investigation by the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, which is the Pentagon's official X-Files division. They just don't call it the X-Files. If this kind of thing excites you or makes you want to build a bunker, either way, I have good news. More government UFO disclosures are on the way. A new Pentagon report is expected to drop soon, possibly giving us more answers. In the meantime, if you need a UFO fix, you can browse through over 2,700 pages of actual declassified CIA UFO reports, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act. These documents, uploaded by researcher John Greenwald Jr. to the Black Vault, prove that the government has been watching the skies for decades and still doesn't know what half of this stuff is. Was a cameraman left behind on the moon? Shocking new footage, allegedly leaked from NASA, proves that the moon landing was real. Not just real, but really dangerous. The footage supposedly shows a cameraman being left behind by the astronauts. Oh no, poor Bob, left all alone on the moon. The video was allegedly taken on December 14th, 1972. What is so strange about it is that the video was taken from outside the spacecraft and shows the lunar module ascending off the surface of the moon. Apollo 17 astronauts were safe and sound inside the module while their cameraman, let's call him Bob, filmed them leaving. Fast forward to January 28th, 2024, and the X account Historic Videos posted that very same footage. According to some, this video is proof that a poor, lonely cameraman was abandoned on the lunar surface strictly so that NASA could get the dramatic shot. But as you can imagine, NASA is denying it. They say they didn't leave Bob behind. So if the footage isn't real, where did it come from? According to the internet's greatest sleuths over at Snopes.com, the footage was captured by a robotic camera called the Ground Commanded Television Assembly. You can think of it as an early version of a remote-controlled GoPro. It was mounted on the lunar rover and controlled from Earth by flight controller Edward Fendel, a NASA engineer with skills so legendary, press nicknamed him Captain Video. Imagine playing a video game, except there's a 240,000-mile lag between pressing a button button and something happening. That's what Fendel was dealing with. Because of the time delay in radio signals traveling to the moon and back, he had to pre-program the camera moves in advance. He sent the first command 3 seconds before liftoff and hoped for the best. NASA and the electronics company RCA built this fancy setup for Apollo 15, 16, and 17. The idea was to park the rover a certain distance from the lunar module, point the camera at the right spot, and program it to tilt up automatically as the spacecraft launched. The first 2 tries on Apollo 15 and 16 flopped. Apollo 15's camera didn't even move. Apollo 16's attempt was better, but still a little off. Then came Apollo 17, and Fendel nailed it. The so-called leaked footage is real, but it wasn't filmed by Bob. You won't find Bob's skeleton on the moon, no matter how hard you look. An underground alien base. A UFO hunter has discovered an alien base by casually scrolling through Google Earth and checking out random islands. The curious map scrutinizer spotted a mysterious entrance tucked away on an uninhabited island in Indonesia, and he believes it is a secret alien hideout. Most people would think, weird rock formation, or cave, or submarine base, or leftovers from the Cold War. But not Scott Waring. Scott took one look and said, that's it. That's the front door to an underground alien base. Scott Waring is a dedicated UFO hunter who runs the ET Database YouTube channel. He claims the remote island base is proof that extraterrestrials have been sneaking around Earth for a long, long time. But have they really? Using Google Earth's measurement tools, Scott found the opening is about 60 feet across, which, according to Scott, is plenty of space to park a fleet of UFOs. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can check it out for yourself using these coordinates. Scott went a step further, adjusting the contrast on the image to conclude that the tunnel was collapsing inward. This, he said, means the UFO was leaving the underground base. Yeah, Scott really went the distance on this one. He said the image on Google Earth is showing the moment an alien ship blasted off, leaving behind a perfect doorway-shaped hole. It sounds as if aliens are living inside the Earth, erupting from it whenever they take off. The government would have to know about something like this, assuming it's legit. Look, I'm not saying Scott is wrong, but I'm also not saying every oddly shaped hole on Earth is a UFO parking lot. Sometimes a cave is a cave, except when a cave is a secret alien dock. UFO sightings in space. It's one thing to see a UFO in your backyard on a random Tuesday night, but what do you do when you're in space and see a UFO out your ship's window? That's a totally different ballgame. Let's talk about astronauts and the crazy things they've seen in space, and how NASA and the government are intent on denying everything that could be considered out of the ordinary. You'd think if anyone could spot an alien spacecraft, it would be the people floating around in space, right? Things aren't always what they seem when you're orbiting Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. Sometimes it's hard to separate fact from fiction. Science fiction writer Otto Binder once spread a wild story that Neil Armstrong saw UFOs during the Apollo 11 mission. However, NASA has been pretty clear on the subject. In 1970, NASA's Robert F. Allnutt wrote a letter stating that after 15 years of space exploration, astronauts had brought back precisely 0 evidence of extraterrestrial spacecraft, not even a blurry photo. Plus, Neil Armstrong never openly admitted to seeing a flying saucer, but other astronauts have. During the Gemini 4 mission of 1965, astronaut Jim McDivitt saw a white cylindrical shape with a pole sticking out. His partner, Ed White, missed it because he was napping. I can't think of a worse thing to miss out on because of a little catnap. McDivitt later said it was probably space debris, while spaceflight expert James Oberg suggested it was the Titan II rocket's second stage. Then again, could it have been aliens? 2 missions later, on Gemini 7, astronauts mentioned a bogey. You can find the mention for yourself in the transcript of the mission. When people on Earth read it, they instantly thought UFO. However, there's always one guy who refuses to believe in anything. James Oberg, buzzkill extraordinaire, said it was nothing but booster debris. Frank Borman was the astronaut who made the comment. When he tried to clarify on unsolved mysteries about what he'd seen, the producers reportedly told him that maybe they don't want him on the program. Debunking alien sightings with sound science just doesn't make for good TV. Back to Apollo 11 in 1969 and Neil Armstrong. He reportedly saw 2 glowing orbs, and Buzz Aldrin saw them too. However, just like the other sightings, the glowing orbs were swiftly dismissed as components jettisoned from the NASA craft. At this point, you have to wonder if each time astronauts claim to have seen something otherworldly, NASA tells them to shut up and keep it to themselves. Maybe astronauts have to sign some sort of NDA promising not to reveal the spooky stuff beyond our atmosphere. What do you think? In 2005, on the International Space Station, astronaut Leroy Chiao saw a series of lights during a spacewalk. At first, he was extremely excited, but before anyone could yell UFO, Chiao figured out they were fishing boats hundreds of miles below. That's weird. Mistaking flying objects for fishing boat lights? Could that be true, or is it the worst excuse in history? Again on the ISS, this time in 2013, astronaut Christopher Cassidy spotted an object floating past the space station. Russia quickly identified it as an antenna cover. It was nothing but space garbage. Then in 2020, the same thing happened on the ISS. Cosmonaut Ivan Wagner posted a time-lapse video of the Aurora Australis, capturing what he called space guests in the footage. Roscosmos even played along, calling it mysterious. It seemed like maybe he filmed alien life. Alas, the excitement died down when Wagner later clarified that the objects were satellites. How boring. It seems like every time an astronaut sees something weird or captures footage of an unusual object, it's space junk. Disappointment after disappointment. Still, so what do you think? Do you feel like somewhere amidst these sightings is something truly alien? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The 1947 alien autopsy footage. Do you happen to remember the alien autopsy video? That grainy black and white footage from 1995 that showed guys in hazmat suits poking around what looked like E.T.'s distant cousin? If you don't remember, prepare to be truly shocked. It was one of the biggest UFO bombshells ever dropped, right up until it was exposed as a hoax. Only now, things are changing. The only known alien autopsy video ever leaked might have been the real deal. Ray Santilli was the mastermind behind the video. He came out years ago saying it was a hoax, but now he's changed his mind and is doubling down, saying the footage has been real all along. To prove his point, Santilli has dropped a never-before-seen image that he claims is from the original alien autopsy footage. According to Santilli, this whole saga started in 1992 when he was working on a documentary about Elvis Presley. I'm not saying Elvis was an alien, just to clarify. Listen to the whole story. While collecting old Elvis footage, Santilli met a random cameraman in Cleveland who approached him and said, "Hey, want to see something even weirder than 1970s Elvis?" That man was an ex-military cameraman who had filmed an actual alien autopsy after the 1947 Roswell crash. Obviously, Santilli was intrigued. Who wouldn't be? Santilli said that after 2 years of negotiations, he finally got his hands on the real footage, only to realize that it had deteriorated beyond use. The footage was real, but couldn't be viewed, so he recreated it. In a move that would make Hollywood proud, Santilli and his team remade the whole thing. When they released a new version in 1995, they totally forgot to mention that it was a dramatization, not a real autopsy video. Are you confused yet? Because a lot of people are. The bottom line is that Santilli saw the original autopsy footage, then remade it since the tape was busted. And now, in a last-ditch effort to convince people he's telling the truth, he's released a still image from the original footage, not from the remade footage. There, that's everything tied up in a neat little bow. Despite the controversy, Santilli insists it was not a hoax. In his words, he was merely doing what art restorers do, except instead of fixing up the Mona Lisa's smile, he was giving an alien's insides a glow-up. There you have it, the original photo from the real autopsy. Is that a real alien corpse recovered from the New Mexican desert, or is it some blurry black and white nonsense? Let me know what you think in the comments, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. A UFO salvaged from the sea. This new leaked video is nuts. It's super new, super convincing, and it's creepy. creepy. A whistleblower has leaked a video showing a U.S. Air Force helicopter casually carrying off what appears to be an alien spacecraft. It's an egg-shaped one, to be exact. Less of a flying saucer and more of a flying omelet. The footage, which has UFO expert Ross Coulthart losing his mind in excitement, allegedly comes from someone inside the Pentagon's top-secret UAP crash retrieval team. In the clip, a 20-foot egg-shaped object dangles from a sling beneath a chopper, looking like the world's most intense Easter egg hunt gone wrong. This bombshell lines up with the testimony of former USAF mechanic Jacob Barber. Post 9/11, Barber left the Air Force and took on a new identity as a civilian contractor. Barber claims he worked at the range, a place where the U.S. government tests everything from weapon systems to alien vehicles. He says he's seen cutting-edge military tech, but nothing prepared him for what he calls an extraordinary and anomalous object, a craft with no wings, no windows, and no way to tell how it worked. One day, Barber was tasked with retrieving an odd object using a helicopter sling and a 150-foot-long line. He says, "I saw an egg, a white egg, and before you ask, no, there was no giant chicken anywhere in sight." Things got even weirder. Barber, who was operating using night vision goggles, checked the object multiple times. Still an egg shape, no engines, no heat signatures, no visible means of propulsion. Just a big, eerie, glowing egg UFO. At this point, his bosses dropped the biggest plot twist of all. They told him that the giant egg was made by NHI, the acronym for Non-Human Intelligence. Barber had officially entered the Twilight Zone. As if hauling an alien pod wasn't enough, Barber says he came across other extraterrestrial tech during his work, including something he called an 8-gon, a flying disc with 8 sections. Barber also says some USAF personnel were trained to mentally communicate with these crafts. Jedi mind tricks, but with spaceships. The Air Force was reportedly interested in seeing if UFOs could be summoned, communicated with, or persuaded to land by using psychic abilities. Imagine getting drafted into the Air Force thinking you're going to work on jets, and suddenly you're being asked to telepathically sweet-talk a UFO into parking itself on the runway. That is not in the job description for sure. Barber, realizing that talking about this stuff might put a target on his back, went straight to U.S. Senator Marco Rubio. When you start uncovering government secrets, it's best to have a politician on speed dial. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has teased revealing America's biggest secrets, including UFOs. Whether he actually will or not, time will tell. Some skeptics are already poking fun at the footage, suggesting the alien craft is nothing but an elaborate hoax. Others insist that Barber's story is the real deal. I'm curious to know where you stand. Are we being visited by egg-shaped spacecraft? If the giant egg recovered from the sea wasn't a spaceship, what was it? The Air Force retrieved something from the ocean. Let's just hope it wasn't an unhatched Godzilla egg or something even worse. Things are already stressful enough right now. The missing Apollo 11 tapes. Houston, we have a problem. NASA accidentally lost the original Apollo 11 moon landing footage, the single greatest achievement in human space exploration, and they still can't find it. I get losing your car keys or your wallet, but losing some of the most important footage in human history? How could this have happened? Some suspect the tapes were never lost at all, but rather destroyed to cover up what the Apollo 11 astronauts really saw out there in the stars. In other words, to cover up the existence of aliens. NASA almost got away with it too. They would have if not for those pesky reporters. In 2006, NPR reported that NASA had somehow misplaced the original lunar camera footage. In response, NASA launched a massive search for the tapes, checking all the usual places like storage facilities, old boxes, and behind the vending machines. Then, just as the search team was about to throw in the towel, a miracle. Some old documents revealed that the Applied Physics Laboratory had recorded the signals on a couple of experimental 2-inch tapes. This was it, the golden ticket, the holy grail of lost footage. The team tracked down a former APL employee who definitely remembered recording the moonwalk in 1969 and keeping the tapes at the Applied Physics Laboratory. Exciting, right? They even found a vintage device that could play the relics. It's probably not a surprise that you can't just shove a 1969-era NASA tape into your Blu-ray player. And since these tapes suffered from what's known as sticky shed syndrome, they even bought a vegetable dehydrator to bake them. NASA was going to bake the sticky tapes so that they could play on the ancient device. But when the moment of truth came, it was a disaster. The tapes played, but they were blank. There was nothing on them. It was as if the moonwalk had never happened. Suspicious? You bet. Things were only going to get more suspicious as the hunt for the tapes continued. After 3 years of searching, the grim truth came out. NASA had erased and reused the original Apollo 11 footage to save money on magnetic tape. The most historic video footage in human history is gone because NASA was running low on tapes and wanted to save a few bucks. This wasn't some random home movie of Uncle Carl barbecuing in his socks and sandals. This was the moon landing, and they recorded over it, probably with satellite weather reports or reruns of Gilligan's Island. NASA's Dick Nazgar, the man leading the search, tried to smooth things over by saying, "I don't think anyone in the NASA organization did anything wrong." Oh sure, nothing wrong. Just deleting irreplaceable evidence of the most iconic moment in space history happens all the time. Not. Conspiracy theorists ate up this news like a UFO-shaped pancake at brunch. People are still saying today that NASA deleted the footage on purpose to either A, make it impossible to prove the moon landing was fake, or B, prevent the public from seeing what the astronauts found when they landed on the moon. To make up for this debacle, NASA announced a consolation prize. They hired Hollywood to enhance the broadcast version of the moon landing. Because when you lose priceless historical footage, obviously the next step is to call in the guys who restored Bambi and Star Wars. And still, things got more suspicious. The people charged with recreating the original footage found themselves in a massive government storage facility, a real-life version of that warehouse from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They combed through thousands of tapes and documents, hoping for a lucky break. Instead, they found out that in the early 1980s, NASA had removed tens of thousands of tapes from storage, many of which were erased and reused. It's not just Apollo 11 footage that's missing. NASA scrubbed more than 10,000 tapes from the early days of the space program, officially because they needed more recording space. I guess they forgot to run to Office Depot. Unofficially because they're hiding something. Since the original moon landing footage was toast, the team had to make do with degraded broadcast quality versions. To give the footage a facelift, NASA turned to Low-Read Digital, the same people who restored Snow White. They used over 100 computers to clean up the images, removing static and improving detail. The result is a better-looking moonwalk, but still, not the crystal-clear footage those lost tapes would have provided.
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. The Mystery of Shiprock. Near the city of Shiprock, New Mexico, there is a strange rock formation, also called Shiprock. It's in the middle of an empty wasteland, a desert of scrub plants and lizards basking in the sun. Hundreds of years ago, the land was populated by the Pueblo people, prehistoric Native Americans, also known as the Anasazi. To them, Shiprock was a sacred place. The Navajo believed the gigantic rock represented a bird that carried their ancestral people on its back from the heavens to the earth. The bird touched down at the exact location of Shiprock. The ancestors of the Navajo climbed down from its back, and then the bird immediately turned to stone. In the Navajo language, Shiprock is called Se-bit-ai, which means rock with wings. It was named Shiprock by the Europeans who arrived in the 19th century and thought the formation looked a little like a ship, but technically it should be called a bird rock. In any case, geologists don't believe in the legends. Science tells us the rock formed about 27 million years ago. It's actually what's left of a long-forgotten volcano. Over millions of years, the volcano eroded, melting into the flat landscape. The only thing that remains today is the rock rising 1,500 feet above the windswept desert. Before Europeans arrived, the rock was a forbidden place to the Navajo people. They first lived at the rock's peak, only venturing into the flatlands to toil in the fields or get water. But then came a massive lightning storm, which forced the Navajo down from the rock, and they never returned. This is all according to the stories passed down through generations. Science tells us the rock definitely is not a petrified bird, but that doesn't mean there isn't some truth to the story. It could be that the ancestors of the Navajo, the people who came even before the Anasazi, arrived in New Mexico on the back of something. If it wasn't a great bird, maybe it was a ship that dumped them in this inhospitable desert. Just kidding. And now for number 9. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Kathleen Garcia and No Name No Last Name for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about conspiracies from ancient history. The Orion Cube. Dan Burish was born in California in 1964. He studied microbiology at the University of Las Vegas, graduated in 1986, then studied a bit more in New York. He would grow up to be the youngest member of the Microbiology Society of Los Angeles, and in the late 1980s received a mysterious visit from government agents. None of this has ever been confirmed as fact, so take the conspiracy here with a grain of salt. But according to Dan's story, he was approached by men in military uniform and asked to work on a secret project. He worked on several different projects, then a few years later was transferred to Area 51, where he began to work on Project Aquarium. This is where things get strange. Dan allegedly learned that the military was in possession of extraterrestrial ships and the aliens who piloted them. These beings were called Orions and supposedly came from the star system Z Reticuli. Among the myriad of ships kept in Area 51 was the same vessel that crashed in Roswell in 1947. During his work at Area 51, Dan learned that the alien beings are not creatures from another planet, but a distant form of human evolution from thousands of years in the future. He was apparently one of the people responsible for taking blood samples of the beings and studying them. Dan also learned that the beings had given a mysterious cube to President Eisenhower capable of predicting the future. The artifact is called the Orion Cube and has supposedly been changing hands ever since. It passes between the rich and powerful, allows them to get brief glimpses into the future, and they use it to accumulate more and more wealth. Dan's story is extremely unreliable and there isn't a sliver of evidence to back it up, but many people do believe in the theory that aliens are more advanced humans from another place in the universe. Some even think we were left here on Earth by our own kind thousands of years ago, and that one day they will come back to see how we're doing. Maybe that's got something to do with the Navajo story of being dropped off in the desert on the back of a big bird. Do you believe Dan's story? Let me know in the comments. The stone soldiers of the Inca. In 1438, the Inca fought an epic battle against their rivals, the Chanca, for domination of ancient Peru. According to Inca legend, they used stone soldiers to win that battle. Yes, stone soldiers like animated golems. They were called the Pururaucas. And although the Inca weren't able to write down the recipe for these stone soldiers since they didn't have a written language, they never stopped telling the story. It trickled down through generations of oral folklore, and we're still talking about it today. But did the Inca really create stone soldiers to help win their fight against the Chanca? And if so, why didn't they do it again to fight the Spanish? If the myth is to be believed, the Inca were not in complete control over the constructs. The story says that when the Inca faced off against the Chanca in the Battle of Pampa, these stone warriors suddenly came to life to help. What's really interesting is that in the Quechua language of the ancient Andean people, Pururaucas means unconquerable enemies. This seems to suggest the Inca knew about these stone warriors and that they were undefeatable, but not how to control them. They gave credit to the god of creation, Viracocha, for bringing the stone warriors to life. It's hard to identify which aspects are myth and which aspects are truth. We know the Chanca and the Inca were arch enemies in the 15th century. In 1428, the army of the Chanca conquered the city of Cusco with an army of 50,000 soldiers. Prince Kusi managed to escape and rally a small force of rebels to fight back. However, we don't know how they won the battle. It could have been a guerrilla warfare situation, with the Inca making it seem as if their army was bigger than it really was. They may have tricked the Chanca into believing they had manifested an army of stone soldiers, or who knows, maybe their god really did send them animated constructs. Whatever the case, the victory over the Chanca was the first step to establishing the Inca Empire. Alien paintings. In India's Bastar region, there is a collection of rock paintings that date back 10,000 years. The paintings are remarkable for one main reason. They depict alien creatures and unidentified flying objects. It's a little astounding because, according to local archaeologist J.R. Bhagat, the paintings are almost identical to the aliens shown in the most popular sci-fi movies, and yet they were created by an unknown culture inside a series of caves near a remote village 100 centuries ago. J.R. Bhagat says the paintings prove beyond any doubt that humans witnessed alien beings from other planets during prehistoric times. It's easy enough to say, but not all experts are convinced. Most mainstream archaeologists argue the images are expressions of a healthy imagination. The inhuman figures more than likely aren't aliens, but ordinary humans who look coincidentally like astronauts from another dimension. This is one of those instances where it's impossible to disprove the conspiracy or prove what the mainstream archaeologists are saying. We can't ask the artists since they've been dead for 10,000 years. All we have are interpretations of the images, and to be honest, they do look like aliens. Locals in the region even worship the paintings for many years. They still speak of tales passed down from their ancestors of the Roela people. These were small humans who used to come down from the sky and take 1 or 2 people from their village back up into the heavens with them. It sounds an awful lot like intergalactic kidnapping, but we can't say for sure if the stories are true. The Lost Secrets of Siberia. In northern Russia, the Yakutia region is similar in its vastness and unexplored depths as the wilds of Alaska. The land here is inhospitable, covered in bogs and icy swamps, and steeped in controversial mysteries. Locals refer to this great expanse of wilderness as the Valley of Death. There are tales of unexplained disappearances, metallic spheres in the sky, and unsolvable mysteries. One of those mysteries is the Tunguska explosion of 1908. That was when an unknown object exploded in the sky above the tundra, leveled the trees, and inflicted damage like a nuclear blast. It was later blamed on an exploding meteorite, but many think it had something to do with alien visitors. Similar catastrophic events occurred in 1984 and 2002. In 1984, there were a series of munitions fires that resulted in devastating explosions, killing about 300 people in the middle of nowhere. The New York Times reported that it was an accident involving munitions and that most of the dead were ordnance technicians sent into the fire to defuse the situation. But many believe it was another event like the explosion in 1908, and the Russian government covered it up. There was a similar event on September 25, 2002. A massive explosion was detected in the Irkutsk Oblast, similar in power and ferocity to the Tunguska explosion. Witnesses saw a fireball, felt the force of the explosion, and again, the event was blamed on a meteorite. Conspiracy theorists think there is something else going on in Siberia, and that the explosions could be from UFOs entering or leaving the atmosphere. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. The Comet Hypothesis. The Clovis Comet Hypothesis is less of a conspiracy and more of a wild speculation. There are some experts out there who believe that 12,850 years ago, a giant asteroid crashed into the planet, wreaking havoc. The space debris likely hit North America, maybe even breaking apart and smashing into various parts of the globe. Where it landed doesn't really matter. The consequences are the same. It's believed this asteroid caused a chain of events that decimated human civilization. The comet led to the extinction of major Pleistocene megafauna, including animals like the mastodon, saber-toothed tiger, the giant ground sloth, and more. It also wiped out the Clovis culture and potentially the civilization of Atlantis. One of the most prominent believers in the theory is scientist Martin Sweatman from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. He and his team allegedly discovered high levels of platinum in North America and Greenland, where they think pieces of the asteroid hit. Platinum is evidence of an extremely high temperature event, the result of a great explosion that generated so much heat it created nanodiamonds. The physical evidence does seem to be there, although the theory still hasn't really caught on. Research suggests something significant did happen 12,850 years ago. We see a great event memorialized at Göbekli Tepe, a place often called the world's first temple. We also know that global flood myths date back to that same time period, including the biblical myth of the Great Flood and an older myth in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Countless ancient civilizations spoke of a world-altering event 13,000 years ago, give or take a few decades. The dating also coincides with the sudden destruction of Atlantis. Scholars are wary of accepting the truth of a catastrophic event that changed the world, yet the historical records seem to support the conspiracy theorists on this one. If true, it could mean the Bible was right. There really was a flood, and it could also mean Atlantis was real, and that it did sink because of an asteroid. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear. The Civil War Terasaur. Conspiracy theorists love to talk about cryptozoology. The Loch Ness Monster is secretly a marine reptile from 250 million years ago. Bigfoot is really a human ancestor hiding in the North American wilderness. There is also a sauropod allegedly living in the Congo named Mokele Mbembe. None of this has ever been proven, but that doesn't stop people from believing in them. And this brings us to the Terasaur, supposedly killed by soldiers of the Union Army during the American Civil War of the 1860s. Unlike the Loch Ness Monster, we have a picture of the prehistoric flying reptile. The photo has been circulating for years, with nobody able to determine whether it's real or fake. The photograph in question shows a group of soldiers standing victoriously around the corpse of a dinosaur, a flying reptile with a wingspan of about 20 feet that should have gone extinct 66 million years ago. The photograph is tenuous evidence at best. We don't have a story or any eyewitness testimonies, just a photograph. But the presence of a flying dinosaur fits very nicely with ancient legends from North America. Many Native American tribes believed in something called the Thunderbird, a mythical beast whose description fits exactly with the physical appearance of an extinct pterosaur. Tribes from the Pacific Northwest believed the Thunderbird made thunder by flapping its wings, and lightning came from it flashing its eyes. These stories are so similar and so prevalent across North America, it's hard to imagine the Thunderbird wasn't a real animal. Perhaps there was a line of pterosaurs that survived the extinction of the rest of the dinosaurs, and the Native Americans knew about it. Then, unbeknownst to the rest of the world, the Union Army shot and killed the last one. Ancient Anunnaki handbags. On the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, an ancient temple built 13,000 years ago by an impossibly advanced civilization, there are images of gods holding what appear to be handbags. These same images are seen on stone reliefs in ancient Assyria and in stonework created by the Olmec culture of Mesoamerica. The Olmec were the precursors to the Maya, one of the first advanced societies in the Western Hemisphere. In almost every corner of the globe, we can find ancient gods adorning the walls of temples and ruins, many of them holding the exact same handbag. So what's the deal with that? And what does this mysterious handbag represent? It might not be a purse, even though that's exactly what it looks like. Sometimes it looks a bit like a bucket, maybe a basket, but it's always a god holding some kind of bag-like object. Some experts have suggested it has nothing to do with a bag. Instead, the semicircular handle represents the hemisphere of the sky, while the solid base represents the planet, and thus the image would mean something along the lines of a unified earth and sky, or to go even deeper, the bond between material and immaterial forms of existence. The Assyrians of ancient Iraq carved images of their gods holding handbags around 880 BC. The Olmecs of Mesoamerica created the same thing between 1200 and 400 BC. The ones at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey date back to 11,000 BC. In New Zealand, the Maori worship the symbol of the handbag as a representation of the divine knowledge bestowed upon them by the gods. Some believe the handbags represent a gift given to all these different cultures by the very real gods who came down from the sky, the same gods who shared the knowledge needed to create civilization. Then again, it could all just be a wild coincidence. What do you think the handbag/basket object is? Let me know in the comments. The Stone of Destiny. Nobody knows where the Stone of Scone, also called the Stone of Destiny, came from. One theory is that it came from the Holy Land after the death of Christ. It traveled through Spain, Ireland, and then made it to Scone in Scotland in the 9th century. Others believe the stone has nothing to do with the Holy Land and has always been in Scotland. Another possibility is that the stone was taken from a Roman altar at the Antonine Wall and transported to Scone. There's enough confusion that we have no idea where the stone came from. Despite its mystery, the stone has been used in the coronation of kings for over 1,000 years. Even King Charles III has just welcomed the Stone of Scone to London in late April 2023 and used the ancient artifact for his coronation. Did you know that? But just what in the world is this mythical stone? It's a block of sandstone previously kept in the ruins of Scone Abbey. It was traditionally used in the coronation ceremonies of Scotland's monarchs. But in 1296, King Edward I stole the stone when he invaded Scotland. Then it was used in the coronation of the English monarchs and the monarchs of Great Britain in general and the UK that followed. In 1996, after approximately 700 years, the British government finally agreed to return the stone to Scotland. It was taken to Edinburgh Castle and kept alongside the Scottish crown jewels. There isn't much ceremony to be had with the stone. New monarchs just sit on it during their coronation. When it was taken back to England in the 13th century, King Edward fitted the stone into a wooden chair that became known as the coronation chair. But even after all these years, the origins of the stone are still nothing but myth and rumor. One story is that Fergus, son of Erc and first king of the Scots, stole the stone from the Irish in the 5th century. It was supposedly used at the Hill of Tara by the High Kings of Ireland to coronate their kings going back hundreds of years. And if we keep going back, the stone was supposedly used in biblical days. Many believe it to be the stone of Jacob, which appears in the book of Genesis as the stone Jacob used as a pillow. For being a stone, it's getting a lot of love. Transforming monks. Everywhere in ancient history, we see how meditation and enlightenment have extraordinary effects on the human body. Buddhists call it the rainbow body. The Islamic mystics call it the supra-celestial body. Tantric teachings call it the divine body. And in the ancient Mithraic religion, it was known as the perfect body. There are dozens of different names for it, but it's all the same thing. The ancient mystical religions teach that when a monk enters the final state of enlightenment, the effect is so powerful that their physical form transcends the shackles of the human body and they dissolve into pure light. It sounds like magic, but could there be truth to it? There have supposedly been thousands of documented cases of monks transforming into a pure burst of light as their body disintegrates. It's never been captured on film, and scientists say it's nothing but nonsense. But there are some scraps of evidence. Outside Asura Cave in Nepal is the alleged handprint of Padmasambhava, an ancient tantric master and Buddhist mystic of the 8th century. The handprint was supposedly left in the rock during his final moments of physical life. When he transformed into light energy, the transformation was so intense, it left his handprint seared into the rock. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and let me know if you'd like to see a part 2. See you next time. Bye!